When you focus inward, you don't just grow, you transform. Stop measuring your worth by others' success. Your path is yours alone. You don't create freedom by competing, you create it by becoming. When you begin to recognize that everything in your life is a reflection of the inner state you carry, you start to see how crucial internal alignment really is. Most people spend their energy scanning the external world, constantly measuring themselves against others, constantly trying to live up to someone else's expectations or standards, but this way of living robs them of their true power. The human mind has been conditioned from a very early age to look outward for validation. We are taught to compare our performance, our looks, our progress, our worth against other people. This constant outward focus creates an endless cycle of dissatisfaction, because no matter how much we achieve, there will always be someone with more, someone doing better, someone appearing more successful. When you live this way, your sense of self becomes fragmented, your energy scattered, and your ability to create your own reality is greatly diminished. Internal alignment means that you begin to organize your thoughts, feelings, and actions around your authentic self, rather than around the external noise of the world. It means that you learn to silence the inner chatter that was born out of comparison and judgment, and instead tune into the deeper intelligence within you. There is a field of energy that you are constantly broadcasting into the world through your emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. If those are scattered, reactive, and shaped by what others are doing, then your life experience will reflect that disorganization. But when you bring yourself into coherence, when your mind, body, and heart begin to move in harmony, you unlock a level of power that is far beyond what the external world could ever provide. The science of focus tells us that where you place your attention is where you place your energy. If your attention is always on what others are doing, on how they are succeeding, on whether they approve of you, then your energy is leaking outward. This leaves you depleted and stuck in the same patterns. But when you begin to draw that attention back to yourself, you start conserving your energy. You reclaim the life force that was scattered across countless comparisons, judgments, and opinions, and you direct it into your own inner transformation. That conservation of energy is what creates momentum, and momentum is what reshapes the trajectory of your life. Consider the emotional toll of living misaligned. Every time you feel jealousy, envy, resentment, or inferiority, it is because you are comparing yourself to someone else's journey. Those emotions not only weaken your mental clarity, but also send signals to your body that keep it locked in stress chemistry. Stress is the ultimate misalignment. It pushes your body into survival mode, where all it knows is fight, flight, or freeze. In this state, you are not creating, you are reacting. You are not building the future you want. You are repeating the same cycles of fear and lack. Internal alignment lifts you out of survival and into creation. When your inner state is aligned, you become less reactive to the noise of the world. You no longer chase after validation because you feel whole within yourself. You no longer waste energy trying to prove yourself because you understand that proving implies you are not already enough. Internal alignment is the recognition that you already carry the seeds of everything you desire within you. When you cultivate thoughts that match those desires, when you allow your emotions to harmonize with those thoughts, you send a clear and powerful signal into the field of possibility. Life responds to that signal with opportunities, synchronicities, and experiences that match your internal state. Imagine the difference between two people, one who lives constantly in comparison and one who lives in alignment. The first is always chasing, always doubting, always adjusting themselves to fit into the mold of others' expectations. Their life feels like a treadmill, endless running but never arriving. The second person has turned inward, listening to their inner wisdom, aligning their thoughts with their vision, and feeling emotions that support that vision. Their life feels magnetic because they are not forcing outcomes but allowing reality to unfold in harmony with their internal coherence. The difference is not luck. The difference is alignment. This process requires discipline. It is not enough to simply say you will focus on yourself. You must practice. You must notice when your thoughts wander into comparison, when you scroll through the endless images of others' curated lives, when you measure your progress against someone else's highlight reel. In those moments, you bring your focus back to your breath, back to your heart, back to your vision. You remind yourself that your journey is unique, that no two timelines are the same, and that energy invested in others' paths is energy lost from your own. With consistent practice, the mind becomes trained and the habit of comparison begins to dissolve. Internal alignment also awakens creativity. When your energy is no longer wasted on competing or comparing, it becomes available for innovation, for intuition, for breakthroughs that come from within. You start seeing possibilities you never noticed before because your focus is no longer clouded by distraction. You notice synchronicities, those seemingly small coincidences that guide you toward the path you are meant to walk. You feel inspired not by what others are doing, but by the vision emerging from your own heart. Inspiration is a sign of alignment, and it carries a frequency that draws life toward you in ways logic alone cannot explain. This is why focusing on yourself is not selfish but necessary. You cannot serve others, create meaning, or live with purpose if you are fractured inside. Alignment makes you whole, and wholeness radiates outward. When you are aligned, your presence alone influences others, not because you are trying to outdo them, but because your coherence becomes magnetic. People sense stability, authenticity, and power in someone who has stopped looking outward for validation. Alignment is mastery of the inner world. It is the foundation upon which every transformation is built. Without it, you may achieve temporary success, but it will always feel unstable, always dependent on something outside of you. With alignment, your success becomes sustainable because it flows from the inside out. Your life becomes less about proving and more about being, less about chasing and more about attracting. And it all begins with the simple but powerful choice to stop looking outward and start tuning inward to the harmony that has always been waiting within you. One of the most subtle yet destructive habits of the human mind is comparison. From a young age, you are programmed to look outside yourself and measure your worth against someone else's. Whether it is in school, in family dynamics, in society, or later in careers, the constant evaluation of how you are doing compared to others becomes almost automatic. At first, it may seem harmless, simply observing how you rank, where you stand, or how much progress you've made relative to your peers. But over time, this habit conditions you to derive your sense of identity not from who you are, but from how you appear in relation to others. It creates a cycle of external dependency, where your happiness and self-worth fluctuate based on what someone else is doing, achieving, or displaying. This cycle is the trap of comparison, and it keeps countless people locked away from their true potential. The reason comparison is such a trap is because it tricks you into believing that life is a competition. It convinces you that you are somehow lacking until you reach or surpass what others have accomplished. But in truth, comparison is a distortion of perception. When you look at someone else's success, you are only seeing the surface, the highlight reel, the finished product, the outward expression of their journey. You do not see the internal struggles, the failures, the doubts, the countless moments of discipline and pain. Yet the mind ignores this complexity and creates a false narrative that others are simply better, faster, more deserving. When you internalize this narrative, you begin to feel inadequate, and that feeling produces emotions like jealousy, envy, or discouragement. Those emotions, in turn, shape your state of being, and your state of being creates your reality. This is how comparison locks you into a cycle of lack. The danger of comparison is not just emotional but neurological. Every time you think a thought of comparison, you fire and wire the same networks in your brain that reinforce feelings of inferiority. Those neural circuits become stronger with repetition, and soon the brain automatically defaults to comparing whenever it encounters a new situation. This neurological conditioning keeps you trapped in the past, reliving the same limiting emotions over and over. Instead of creating from the present moment where true possibility exists, you are recycling old patterns of judgment and competition. In this state, your body becomes addicted to the chemistry of stress and self-doubt, and you unconsciously seek situations that confirm your feelings of inadequacy, because the body craves what it knows, even if it is destructive. Breaking free from the trap of comparison requires awareness. The moment you catch yourself comparing, you create space between the thought and the reaction. In that space, you can choose differently. You can remind yourself that comparison is an illusion because no two journeys are the same. Each person is living out their own unique combination of circumstances, choices, and lessons. To compare your path with theirs is like comparing the growth of an oak tree to a rose. It makes no sense because each has its own timeline, its own beauty, its own expression of life. When you truly understand this, comparison begins to lose its grip on you. Comparison also robs you of joy. You could achieve something extraordinary, something that once felt impossible, but the moment you measure it against someone else's greater achievement, the joy dissolves. This creates a void inside you that nothing external can ever fill, because the goalpost keeps moving. Someone will always have more, someone will always be further ahead, and if you tie your worth to that moving target, you will never arrive. But when you step out of comparison and appreciate your own growth, no matter how small, you reclaim your joy. You start to celebrate the process instead of the scoreboard. This shift in perception creates gratitude, and gratitude is one of the highest states of alignment you can live in. Another dimension of the trap of comparison is how it blinds you to your own potential. When your focus is locked on what others are doing, you miss the opportunities unfolding right in front of you. You spend your creative energy analyzing their lives instead of building your own. Your attention becomes fragmented, and fragmented attention produces fragmented results. The truth is that your power lies in your ability to focus on your inner world. By withdrawing attention from comparison and directing it inward, you free up energy that can now be invested in growth, healing, and creation. This is the same energy that can transform habits, rewire the brain, and generate new experiences. Comparison keeps you bound to what is. Inward focus opens you to what can be. It is important to understand that the world we live in amplifies comparison more than ever. Social media has turned comparison into a global epidemic where carefully curated images of people's lives flood your mind daily. These images are not reality, yet they hijack the brain into believing they are. They condition you to think that everyone else is happier, wealthier, more attractive, or more successful, and in that illusion, your own life begins to feel small. But the truth is, no one posts their struggles, their darkest nights, or their internal battles. You are comparing your raw, unfiltered life to someone else's staged highlight reel, and the result is always dissatisfaction. Recognizing this illusion is the first step to breaking its hold. The antidote to comparison is authenticity. When you begin to live from your authentic self, when you align your actions with your inner truth, you no longer feel the need to measure up to others. You realize that your worth is not dependent on external achievements or validation, but is inherent in your being. Authenticity dissolves comparison because it shifts your focus from competing to creating. You stop asking, "How do I measure up?" and start asking, "What am I here to express? What am I here to create? What is the unique gift only I can bring into the world?" These questions redirect your energy inward and open the door to limitless potential. Comparison will always tempt the mind because the mind has been conditioned to seek patterns, hierarchies, and rankings. But the more you practice shifting your attention, the weaker the old program becomes. Over time, the neural circuits of comparison begin to prune away, and new circuits of self-awareness and authenticity grow stronger. You begin to feel lighter, freer, more connected to your own journey. You discover joy not in being better than others, but in being better than the version of yourself you were yesterday. And in this space, the trap of comparison dissolves, and you step into a life guided not by external measurements, but by the infinite potential within you. Every human being lives within two worlds: the outer world of circumstances, events, and people, and the inner world of thoughts, emotions, and beliefs. Most people spend the majority of their lives consumed by the outer world, reacting to whatever it presents, trying to control it, resist it, or be validated by it. They do not realize that their greatest power is not in manipulating the external, but in mastering the internal. Shifting attention inward is the key that opens the door to transformation, because where you place your attention is where you direct your energy, and where you direct your energy is what you create. When your attention is constantly directed outward, you live in reaction. If someone compliments you, you feel good. If someone criticizes you, you feel unworthy. If something goes your way, you are hopeful, and if it doesn't, you collapse into fear or doubt. Your sense of self becomes dependent on external events that you cannot control, and so your energy is scattered, unstable, and inconsistent. This is the state most people live in, and it keeps them trapped in cycles of stress, frustration, and dissatisfaction. But when you begin to shift attention inward, you remove yourself from the role of victim and step into the role of creator. You stop living at the mercy of circumstance and start living from the power of your inner state. The inward shift begins with awareness. For most people, the mind is a constant stream of unconscious thoughts, many of them repetitive, most of them conditioned by the past. These thoughts create emotions, and those emotions reinforce the same thoughts, keeping you locked in familiar cycle. If your attention is always outward, you will never notice these cycles because you are too busy reacting to external triggers. But when you pause, when you bring your awareness to your breath, your body, your heart, you begin to observe the inner landscape. You start to see how certain thoughts create tension in your body, how certain emotions lower your energy, how certain beliefs shape your behavior. This observation is not judgment, it is awareness, and awareness is the first step to transformation, because you cannot change what you do not notice. As you practice turning inward, you also begin to reclaim your energy. Imagine how much of your life force is wasted on worrying about what others think, replaying past mistakes, or anticipating future problems. Every one of those mental patterns drains energy from the present moment, where your true creative power lies. By shifting attention inward, you draw that energy back. You stop feeding the past, you stop projecting into the future, and you anchor yourself in the now. In this state of presence, your energy is whole, coherent, and available for transformation. When your attention is inward, you also begin to activate the intelligence of the heart. The heart is not just a physical organ, but a powerful center of energy and intuition. Science has shown that the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, meaning it has its own form of wisdom. When you quiet the noise of the outer world and turn your focus inward, you can connect with this wisdom. You feel guided not by fear or comparison, but by a deeper knowing of what is right for you. This guidance may not always align with external expectations, but it always aligns with your authentic path. The more you trust this inner compass, the more your life begins to flow with ease and synchronicity. Another profound aspect of shifting inward is how it changes your relationship with challenges. When your attention is outward, challenges appear as threats, obstacles, or evidence of failure. You react with resistance, stress, or self-pity. But when your attention is inward, challenges become opportunities to observe yourself. You begin to notice how you respond under pressure, what beliefs get triggered, what emotions rise up. This awareness allows you to shift those patterns in the moment, transforming challenges into gateways for growth. Instead of being consumed by the external situation, you use it as a mirror to evolve internally. The inward shift also transforms how you perceive time. When you are outwardly focused, time feels like a constant chase. You are always running toward the future or away from the past, and the present moment slips by unnoticed. But when you turn inward, you anchor yourself in the now. The present moment becomes rich, expansive, and alive. You begin to experience stillness even in the midst of activity, peace even in the midst of uncertainty. This state of presence is not passive, it is deeply creative. It is from this space that new possibilities emerge, because the present moment is the only place where change can truly occur. Shifting attention inward requires practice because the mind has been trained for years, even decades, to look outward for stimulation and validation. At first, it may feel uncomfortable to sit in silence, to turn off the noise, to simply observe yourself. The ego resists because it thrives on distraction, but with consistent practice, the inward shift becomes more natural. You begin to crave the stillness, the clarity, the energy that comes from being rooted in yourself. Over time, this practice rewires your brain and recalibrates your nervous system. You move out of survival mode and into a state of creation, where your body and mind are aligned with possibility instead of fear. The more you shift inward, the more you realize that external circumstances are not the cause of your experience but the effect. Your inner state is the cause. Your outer world reflects the patterns of your inner world. If you are anxious inside, you will see reasons for anxiety outside. If you are aligned inside, you will see alignment outside. This realization empowers you because it shows you that true change does not begin by trying to fix the world, but by transforming yourself. When your attention is inward and your energy is coherent, the external naturally reorganizes to match your inner state. Ultimately, shifting attention inward is about reclaiming sovereignty over your life. It is about no longer giving away your power to circumstances, people, or events, and instead recognizing that your true power lies in how you choose to think, feel, and focus. The more you anchor your attention within, the more you discover the vast reservoir of energy, creativity, and wisdom that has always been available to you. This shift is the foundation of becoming a deliberate creator of your life, because you are no longer tossed around by the external waves, but rooted in the calm, steady ocean of your inner being the moment you stop being entangled in the noise of what others are saying, thinking, or doing. You open a doorway into a new state of awareness. Most people live their lives so deeply identified with their thoughts, emotions, and external roles that they forget they are more than all of those layers. They believe every thought that arises in their mind, they chase every emotion that passes through their body, and they react to every situation as though it defines who they are. Yet the truth is, you are not your passing thoughts, nor your fleeting emotions, nor even the circumstances of your life. You are the awareness behind them. To live from that awareness is to become the observer of self, and it is one of the most liberating shifts a human being can make. Observation creates separation, and separation creates freedom. Imagine for a moment that you are watching a storm through a window. The thunder crashes, the rain pours, the lightning strikes, but you remain safe within your home, simply observing the storm unfold. Now consider what happens when you step outside in the middle of it. You are soaked, shaken, and pulled into chaos. Most people live their lives like that, caught in the storm of their own thoughts and emotions. But when you become the observer, you create the same separation as watching the storm from the window. You no longer drown in the noise of the mind or the pull of emotional triggers. Instead, you begin to see them for what they are, patterns, programs, and habits that can be witnessed, understood, and changed. The act of observation shifts you from unconscious reaction to conscious choice. When you are not observing, you live automatically. A thought arises and you believe it without question. An emotion surfaces and you act on it impulsively. A situation occurs and you react in the same habitual way you always have. This cycle keeps you stuck, repeating the same behaviors, creating the same outcomes, and wondering why nothing changes. But when you step into the role of observer, you insert space between stimulus and response. You catch the thought as it arises, and instead of automatically believing it, you question it. You notice the emotion swelling in your body, and instead of blindly acting from it, you breathe and allow it to pass through. You see the situation unfolding, and instead of collapsing into the old pattern, you choose a new response. This space is where transformation happens. Becoming the observer also allows you to recognize that much of what you think and feel is not truly yours. The beliefs you carry often come from childhood conditioning, cultural programming, or experiences from the past. The emotions you replay are often the residue of old wounds. When you are identified with them, you mistake them for your identity. But when you observe them, you begin to see them as imprints left on your mind and body, imprints that can be released. You realize that just because a thought arises does not mean it is true, and just because an emotion appears does not mean it defines you. This recognition gives you sovereignty over your inner world because you stop being ruled by unconscious programs and start consciously choosing who you wish to become. Observation is also the foundation of self-reprogramming. Neuroscience shows that when you repeatedly observe your thoughts and emotions without reacting, the neural circuits that keep those patterns alive begin to weaken. This process is known as pruning. At the same time, when you consciously choose new thoughts, cultivate new emotions, and act in new ways, you begin to build new neural circuits. The more you observe and redirect, the stronger these new circuits become, and eventually they override the old patterns. In this way, the simple act of becoming the observer becomes the catalyst for rewiring your brain and reshaping your reality. One of the most profound realizations that comes with observation is that you are not the mind. You are the awareness of the mind. This realization dissolves the grip of identification. Instead of saying, "I am anxious," you begin to say, "I am noticing the presence of anxiety." Instead of saying, "I am angry," you say, "I am aware that anger is arising." That small shift in language reflects a massive shift in identity. You are no longer merged with the state, you are standing apart from it, watching it, and if you can watch it, then you are not it. This separation creates freedom because you can now decide what to do with what you observe. The more you practice observing yourself, the more you begin to notice patterns that were once invisible. You start to see how certain situations trigger predictable responses in you. You notice how the same thoughts surface in familiar scenarios. You observe how your body reacts with tension, tightness, or restlessness when certain beliefs are activated. This level of self-awareness gives you incredible insight into the mechanics of your conditioning. It is like stepping behind the curtain of your own life and seeing how the machinery operates. With this knowledge, you are no longer a victim of unconscious programming. You are the conscious director of your experience. Observation also connects you to a deeper sense of stillness. When you pull back from identifying with thoughts and emotions, what remains is pure awareness, calm, expansive, unchanging. In that stillness, you find clarity and peace that is not dependent on circumstances. This inner stillness becomes a sanctuary, a place you can return to no matter what is happening outside of you. It is from this stillness that creativity, intuition, and inspiration emerge, because the noise of the mind no longer drowns them out. Practicing observation does not mean suppressing or denying your inner experiences. It means watching them with presence and curiosity instead of judgment. For example, if you feel anger, you do not push it away or act it out. You simply notice it. You watch how it arises, where it sits in your body, how it shapes your thoughts. By observing it without feeding it, you allow it to dissolve on its own. This practice transforms your relationship with emotions because you no longer fear them or resist them. You simply witness them, and in that witnessing, they lose their power over you. Over time, becoming the observer of self allows you to live with a deeper sense of freedom. You stop being imprisoned by the constant chatter of the mind, the roller coaster of emotions, or the pull of external validation. You live from a place of conscious awareness where you choose how to respond, how to think, how to feel. This shift does not remove challenges from your life, but it changes how you experience them. Instead of being swept away by them, you remain centered in the awareness that you are more than any passing state. From this center, you are free to create, free to grow, and free to live a life not dictated by old patterns, but guided by conscious choice. The moment you stop viewing life as a competition and begin to recognize it as an arena for creation, everything about your existence starts to shift. From a very young age, most people are conditioned to believe that life is a race, that success is about beating someone else, that fulfillment comes from being above others on some invisible ladder. This conditioning creates an endless struggle, where worth is always measured against external benchmarks and achievements are validated only when they surpass those of another. Yet this way of living leaves the soul empty, because it is built on the illusion that joy and purpose come from competing. In reality, the deepest fulfillment comes from creating, from using your inner power to shape your reality in alignment with your authentic self. When you live as a competitor, your energy is always directed outward. You are constantly scanning the horizon to see who is ahead, who is behind, and how you measure up. This fragmented focus divides your energy and keeps you trapped in cycles of comparison and scarcity. You might achieve success, but it will always feel fragile because it depends on someone else remaining below you. There is no peace in this state because the moment someone surpasses you, the identity you built collapses. Living this way ties your sense of self to external circumstances that you cannot control. But when you live as a creator, the source of your worth is no longer external but internal. You stop seeking validation outside of yourself and begin drawing power from within. Creation begins with imagination. When you shift from competition to creation, you stop asking, "How do I measure up?" and start asking, "What is the reality I wish to experience?" Instead of trying to outdo others, you begin to design your life based on your own vision. You imagine who you want to become, what values you want to embody, what experiences you want to live, and what contribution you want to make. This vision becomes your compass, and because it comes from within, it is not dependent on what anyone else is doing. The energy of creation is expansive, abundant, and liberating. It opens doors that competition could never reveal because it draws from the infinite field of possibility rather than the limited game of rankings. When you live as a creator, you also begin to harness the true power of your mind and emotions. Thoughts are the architects of reality, and emotions are the fuel that brings those thoughts to life. In a state of competition, your thoughts are often rooted in lack. I am not enough, I need to get ahead, I must prove myself. Those thoughts generate emotions of stress, anxiety, jealousy, or fear, and those emotions keep you locked in survival. In survival mode, you cannot create because your body and brain are preoccupied with short-term safety. But when you step into creation, your thoughts shift toward vision. I am capable of growth. I can design my future. I can express my potential. These thoughts generate emotions of excitement, gratitude, and inspiration. In this state, your body is no longer in survival, it is in creation. Your energy becomes coherent, your mind opens to new possibilities, and you begin to magnetize experiences that align with your vision. Another profound aspect of living as the creator is the freedom it brings from the illusion of competition itself. When you create from within, you realize that no one else can compete with you because no one else can be you. Your path is unique, your gifts are unique, and your expression of life is unique. To compare your journey with another's is to ignore the individuality of your soul. This realization dissolves the need to outdo anyone because you see that there is no race. Instead, there is only expression. The expression of your authentic self into the world. From this perspective, other people's success no longer threatens you, it inspires you. Their growth is a reminder that more is possible, not a reason to feel less. Living as the creator also requires responsibility. When you are a competitor, you can always blame the competition, the circumstances, or the system for your outcomes. But when you step into the role of creator, you recognize that your reality is a reflection of your inner state. This recognition can be confronting because it means you can no longer point outward, but it is also empowering because it places the power back in your hands. If your outer world is not aligned with your desires, you know it is an invitation to look inward, to shift your beliefs, to regulate your emotions, to redirect your focus. This responsibility is the price of freedom, and it is the foundation of mastery. The path of creation is also one of expansion. When you are no longer bound by the limited energy of competition, you are free to explore possibilities beyond what you once thought possible. You start setting goals not to prove yourself, but to grow yourself. You step into challenges not to beat someone else, but to evolve into a higher version of you. This orientation toward growth rather than winning transforms how you experience life. Failure is no longer something to fear because it is simply part of the creative process. Obstacles are no longer barriers, but opportunities to refine your vision and deepen your strength. Every moment becomes part of the unfolding creation, and that perspective fills life with meaning. When you live as a creator, you also begin to align with flow. Flow is the state where your actions, intentions, and emotions move harmoniously, and outcomes emerge with less resistance. In a competitive mindset, flow is impossible because your energy is fragmented and stressed. But in creation, your energy is coherent. You are not forcing outcomes, you are aligning with them. Life begins to feel synchronistic, opportunities appear at the right time, ideas emerge effortlessly, connections happen naturally. This is not luck but resonance, the natural result of living in alignment with your inner vision rather than chasing someone else's standard. Ultimately, living as the creator instead of the competitor transforms your entire experience of life. It shifts your energy from lack to abundance, from reaction to intention, from fear to inspiration. It makes you realize that the greatest fulfillment is not found in being better than someone else, but in becoming the fullest expression of yourself. In this state, success is no longer about reaching a finish line or defeating an opponent, but about living in harmony with your vision, your values, and your authentic self. Creation is infinite, expansive, and deeply personal, and when you live as the creator, you step into the freedom of designing a life that is uniquely and unapologetically yours when you stop giving your power away to others and start directing that energy back toward yourself. You step into a completely different way of living. Focusing on yourself is not about selfishness. It is about alignment, liberation, and creation. It is about recognizing that comparison is a trap, that your true power lies in the inward shift of attention, that becoming the observer of your own thoughts and emotions frees you from unconscious patterns, and that your destiny unfolds not through competition but through creation. Every moment you spend comparing yourself to someone else is a moment of energy lost, but every moment you spend cultivating your inner world is a moment of energy gained. The real transformation begins the moment you realize that your outer world is a mirror of your inner state. If you are aligned, centered, and coherent within, life will reflect that back to you. If you live as the creator instead of the competitor, you stop chasing outcomes and begin magnetizing them. The path forward is clear. Withdraw your attention from the noise of others and place it on your growth, your healing, your vision, and your potential. When you master this, you no longer need to prove, compare, or compete. You live with clarity, power, and authenticity. You embody the truth that everything you seek has always been within you, waiting to be expressed into the world. And from this state, life does not just happen to you. You consciously create it.